My name's Joel Richard. I've been diagnosed with major depressive disorder and generalized anxiety disorder. I'm a suicide attempt survivor. I had my suicide attempt back in 2014. I was living alone. I had gotten home from a very difficult day of work. And up until that point, I'd had a lot of struggling, and I'd been progressively getting worse and worse in my life and in my interactions with others. I'd closed everybody off. I had isolated. And I was just kind of waiting for an excuse, basically, to take my own life. And that day came, just one random Saturday where I was exhausted, tired, and I just didn't want to do it anymore. And I decided I was done. I didn't want to go through with it anymore. So I woke up in the morning. I got partway into my attempt before I decided I don't want to die, but I don't really want to live. So I'm not sure what I do with this. So the typical mama's boy that I am, I texted my mom, who I had cut off and I'd been mean to up until that point. And I texted her and I said, "Mom, I need help." And she said, she kind of had a sense of what had been going on. And she said, "Are you safe?" And I said, "I'm not sure." And that was enough for her. She called a crisis team to come out and interview me. And she drove from Pittsburgh all the way out to Greensburg, where I lived, so about an hour-long drive, to be with me for that interview. And they didn't even talk to me for 5 minutes before they said, "You need to go to the hospital right now for your own safety." And I was admitted into the hospital, and they finally gave me a diagnosis to something I had been struggling with and experiencing, and I finally had a name for all of this stuff that I'd been dealing with my entire life up until that point. They said, "Joel, you have generalized anxiety disorder and major depressive disorder." Being put into the hospital on self-termination watch was more or less the first step towards recovery for me, and it was a very long and difficult journey. For the first year after I got my diagnosis of generalized anxiety and major depressive disorder, I didn't really buy into the fact that it was a mental health condition. I thought they were like emotions. So I thought, oh, depression, that's what you get, when you feel sad when something bad happens. Anxiety is something you get when there's something big coming. So I'm anxious about a big job interview and all that kind of stuff. And so even after I got my diagnosis, I still thought, well, these are emotions, they're responses to things. Why? I don't have reasons to be depressed. I don't have reasons to be anxious. So am I just a broken human being having these emotions when I shouldn't be? It took about a year before it kind of clicked with me that this was something happening to my body, that this was something affecting my brain. This isn't me just being broken and me being wrong. This is something happening to me, and I didn't know what was going on up until this point. And that was both empowering and terrifying. Because if you've ever been in a hospital with someone when they get a diagnosis for a physical condition, there's that feeling of the air leaving the room. There's that vacuum of hopelessness where it's like control feels like it got taken away from you. But it was also empowering and rewarding because I knew that, okay, there's a science behind this. There's a treatment, there's doctors and programs, and there's research and all these other kinds of things. And if I can acknowledge what parts are outside of my mental control, outside of my control, then I can focus more on the things that I can control and trust medication and therapy and doctors to handle the side of things that are outside of my personal control. What brought me to NAMI is when I first got my diagnosis, I kind of hit rock bottom. I had to move back in with my parents. I lost my job. And I was starting back from square one. And part of my process of getting back into work was to try volunteering. And NAMI was one of the ones that had been suggested to me. People said I had a knack for presenting, and they suggested I sign up to be an inner own voice presenter. And I thought, that's a good way. It's something I have a very intimate experience with right now. So I thought I'd sign up and volunteer. And it's been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life, being an inner own voice presenter. We have to be in the business of lifting ourselves up. And I think it's one of the most important things. And it's hard when you're drawing a comparison between yourself and the rest of the world to say, I succeeded today in that I got out of bed. But I found that in those moments, don't look at the rest of the world. Just look at where you're at. Look at what is difficult and where you're at. And if what's difficult for you is getting out of bed, if you manage to do that, I view that as a victory. I view that as a win. I think it's important to see that there's another end to the tunnel, that after you go through it and experience it, there's still life after the dark days of mental health conditions. There's still the way to be able to live with your condition, to go to work, to consider yourself in recovery, and be a productive member of society.